Hello, welcome. My name is Justin Meredith, and we will get started in just a moment. But in the meantime, feel free to find the chat section and let us know where you're tuning in from. I see Christina's from Houston. That's awesome. I'm also from Houston. We got, that's two people from Texas. Christopher in Portland, Maine. James in North Bay, California. Kansas City. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. We have an amazing discussion planned with our guest speaker, who I'll introduce in just a moment. I just want to let the stragglers join in. Awesome. Very cool. We got people from all over. Portland, San Diego, Louisiana. We've got family in West Monroe, in the north side of Louisiana. The Philippines. Oh, we're going international. This is awesome. Amazing. So we are going to be digging into how AI search, reviews, and the search ecosystem as a whole, and how it works together to drive business visibility. Something that has been commonplace for a long time, especially with like your traditional search rankings, is reviews. But as AI search has evolved and it's grown, and as we'll talk about within the normal search landscape, the way people ask questions, the way people prompt AI has become a lot more nuanced, and the questions that they're asking require more context. And your customer feedback is an area where, a lot of that context is provided. So we're going to talk a lot about how your customer feedback, the way you handle it, as in the way you respond, the types of reviews you receive, and where you get those reviews, and how those play a part in your AI search presence, how all of that plays a role. And we'll talk about some best practices, and some ways that you can optimize your performance. So I think we are looking good. It just looks like the audience is starting to slow down in terms of the number, so we can go ahead and get started. Well, welcome everybody to the latest installment of the AI Success Series. My name is Justin Meredith. I'm a marketing manager here at Birdeye. I'll be the moderator, or I guess the host. And before I introduce our guest speaker, I just wanted to give a quick housekeeping. So up first, a lot of you have found the chat section. So feel free to comment, say hello, ask your questions. We'll be monitoring the chat throughout the conversation. We don't have a designated Q&A section because we want to answer the questions throughout the conversation. We want to bring you into this discussion. So if you have a question, feel free to let us know, and we'll try to take care of it the best we can. If you want to continue your learning or check out some related resources, you can just click that Docs tab next to the chat button there. We've got some amazing guides and blogs. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on LinkedIn. These conversations in the webinars we have are incredible, but our team works really hard at providing content all day, every day on those channels. So feel free to subscribe to those and stay in tune with everything that we've got going on. Most of the content that we do focuses on purely educational, thought leadership type of style content to just help you improve your marketing across the board online. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our guest speaker, Jim Chappelle, who's the Senior Director of Business Development at Yelp. Welcome, Jim. Thank you so much for coming on. How's everything going today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So before we dive in, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your story, on really kind of how you are, where you are right now and what led you to Yelp, and a little bit about what you guys focus on?
Sure thing. So I'm going to date myself. I've been dealing with business owners in some capacity for largely the last 3 decades, variety of different solutions, whether it was online advertising and a decade at Yahoo, recruitment advertising with Monster, and then a stint in SMB payments at both JP Morgan Chase and First Data, or Clover, their POS system. But the last 7 I've been at Yelp leading our partnership team, which manages our portfolio of partners like Birdeye. It's been a great run. March will actually be 7 years, and really excited to be here today. I think helping business owners has been something that has been really important to me throughout my career, and this stint at Yelp has really been able to afford me the opportunity to continue doing that.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I feel like at Yelp, you guys are really on the forefront of what's becoming some of the most impactful elements of local multi-location businesses, especially today, and how it relates to their discoverability online. Um, you know, over the last few years, the world has gone very digital. I think COVID helped accelerate that, and a business's online visibility can be a major channel of revenue for really any business. Um, but things have changed a lot, and I think things are changing even more over the last few months, especially as it relates to the traditional search landscape, as it relates to AI search. People are, consumers are becoming more comfortable with AI search and using ChatGPT and Perplexity and Gemini and all these other channels to find products, local businesses, or just businesses that are in their area. And the way that they're finding these businesses is definitely evolving. So from your opinion and kind of your insight, especially, from the Yelp perspective, how has that shift happened? Like what shifts in the discoverability, landscape have you seen kind of take place over the last couple of years?
I think, from my point of view, the last year has sort of been this like huge explosion from my point of view, both from being in business and then from a consumer perspective. The way that you're interacting and searching online I feels like it's completely changed. I think the biggest change in the seat that I'm in now is we've sort of moved from this discovery period to more decisioning period. I find myself starting searches or prompts in AI now because I feel like I get what I need faster. And the black box that is the large language model does a lot of that decision making that I normally, a year ago was doing in the search results pages standpoint, where I had to go like, all right, does this business offer the service that I'm looking for? What's the rating? How do I feel about the reviews? That's something that really didn't exist up until, fairly recently from that standpoint. So, I think these AI platforms are really compressing that process and taking a lot of the sort of sweat equity out from a consumer's hands in order to not only identify or discover a particular business, but which business is going to be the exact one that meets their needs from the prompt. And then any of the stored information from how that user has actually interacted with it over time.
Yeah. And it feels like it's really evolving because of that element too, like the memory element to it. Like it used to be just a normal traditional search. You could just search like best dentist near me and you get your 10 blue links. And then, ChatGPT kind of came out, and at first it wasn't connected to the web. There was no web search at the time. Google didn't have AI mode. But people would still start to kind of talk to ChatGPT about it, but they've been making updates to where you are, it now has a memory of you, and it can remember facts about you and your preferences. And so if you're looking for a pizza place, it may already know that you're vegan or vegetarian or whatever it may be. And so when you ask it for those recommendations, now that it has web access and memories of, your preferences, those searches are going to be tailored to those preferences, even without you specifically even talking about it. And that's just, to me, is just really fascinating because, like you said, it does take a lot of the work away. So now instead of just searching for, pizza delivery near me, and where you have to go through the 10 blue links or whatever it is and search and try to find and read reviews and go through all this stuff, it does a lot of that work for you. And it also takes your preferences into consideration. And so when that happens, it gives you this list of recommendations. A lot of times it's a lot fewer than what the traditional search results would give you.
Yeah.
It's a shorter list. And I think a lot of businesses are trying to figure out, well, what do I need to do in order to show up on AI search, regardless if it's Google's AI mode, Chat GPT, Perplexity, Claude, or whatever you use. It seems kind of like a mystery. But I think it's also something that isn't an impossible mystery, and I think hopefully you'll be able to provide some light on that. Um, so when an AI system generates these recommendations, what parts of a business's reputation or their brand are they actually looking at? What matters, to these AI systems?
Yeah, I think at the start, from a consumer perspective, feels really fantastic because you're getting exactly what you need really quickly. I could see where there might be some tension from a business owner or a brand perspective because it sort of feels a little bit like a black box from that standpoint. But when you think about the consumer queries that they're asking, those detailed questions, they don't have to ask for, plumber near me anymore or
Mm-hmm.
um, restaurant near me. That it's changing how they're interacting from that standpoint. I think with partners like Birdeye, you guys make it really easy for your customers in order to take advantage of that at scale. So when you start thinking about things like making sure your page is claimed, the hours of operation are updated, there's beautiful photographs that depict what the experience looks like, whether it's the service offerings or menu items that are there. Reputation also impacts a lot as well. When you start thinking
Yeah.
about it, um, large language models on the AI side can ingest a tremendous amount of data and then identify the trends that are sort of inherently there from a platform like Yelp and the infrastructure that we provide. So when you start thinking about it, people aren't searching for, restaurant near me. They might be searching for the kid-friendly, gluten-free option that has great outdoor dining. And
Yeah.
some of those might not be, structured attributes that Birdeye is pushing to like a platform like Yelp. But if it's in review data, I'm a dog owner. It's like I've outdoor dining in New York City. I've had businesses bring me bowl of water for my dog and bacon. If I'm reviewing that, like that's a great signal for dog friendly that can be picked up out of a review. So
Mm-hmm.
thinking about your actual consumer reviews and your review responses, those are all additional signals that are actually helping
Yeah.
inform large language models and then helping package that up for consumers to meet the specific, most relevant inquiry that they have.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems like the traditional SEO signals that would help you rank in that top 10, they're still there, like your li- listings data or your business information, your reviews, making sure that stuff is accurate. And the thought process from a search algorithm is I want to confirm that this business is who they say they are, they do what they say they do, and they're actually located where they say they're located. And any other information I can get to confirm that, and then layer on top of that the overall sentiment and the experience that customers have about that business, all take into account. And to me, I like to almost, people say not to anthropomorphize, give basically a personality to the AI. But I kind of look at it like a human. Like if I were to ask my friend, hey, can you recommend, 5 pizza places, in my area? What would they do in order to find the best recommendations? They would scan the internet. They would look at the reviews. They would look to make sure, like, okay, if I give if I give my friend this recommendation, I want to make sure that they're going to be open at that time, and I want to make sure that the reviews are actually positive, and that I know that they'll have a good experience. But the difference between the traditional SEO and what we're seeing now, some people call it GEO or AEO for answer engine optimization, is that it seems like the scale is a lot larger. It seems like these models are looking at a lot of different places and not just looking at one specific thing. And when the scale of its recommendations is much larger, even for just one location, trying to do that across 100 or 1,000 locations becomes increasingly difficult. And I think that's what, and that, speaks to what you mentioned about Birdeye and how you can manage that stuff at scale very easily from one place. So, one of the things I'm curious though is, especially for you guys at Yelp, one of the things that you understand better than anybody, I'd imagine, is customer feedback. Uh, how does Yelp's customer feedback play into this ecosystem? Is it, just involved with a certain AI model? Is it just involved with what people see on Yelp? How expansive is the Yelp ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think at the highest level, Yelp from, and people probably forget Yelp's been around for 20 years. So when you start thinking about the vast repository of data that exists, hundreds of millions of reviews, like 14 plus million businesses. So there's a tremendous amount of data that's available to push out. Um, those present themselves on Yelp, but they also present themselves, through an ecosystem of distribution partners who are also leveraging Yelp data based on that velocity of review and customer feedback data that we have in the platform. We know a lot about how businesses are reviewed from consumers, how often, whether it's solicited or not, and whether any tactics are being used in order to get reviews. We believe pretty strongly that businesses don't ask for reviews and that they let it happen organically, and that the one thing that they can control is offering genuine, great experiences. And we want consumers to feel compelled to leave that feedback from that standpoint. And the reason we do that is because we believe in those instances, it removes potential bias. Because when you actually come on Yelp, you can have a good indication of the experience that you actually see from the reputation of a particular business is representative and a good likelihood of what you'll experience as a consumer there. So when we start thinking about that, that's really afforded us the opportunity to partner with some of the best known brands out and their platforms in order to leverage Yelp's location data and reputation data, many of which, like partners like Birdeye, are helping actually manage on behalf of their customers and have that syndicated out. So the ability to be able to manage your data, manage your reputation, and interact with consumers, whether it's a good review or a bad review, and responding with empathy and learning from the feedback that you're getting from a review, all of that information is giving great trust signals and funneling out to our syndication partners.
Yeah. And I'm looking at the Q&A or the chat section, and there's people wondering about service area and maybe, if you don't have a physical location. And to me, I feel like that makes your reputation even more important, especially in your reviews, because like you mentioned at the beginning, that context is even more important. And so when people are leaving reviews, it's like if they're talking about, oh yeah, John from Windows Plus or whatever, if they're a home services business where people are going to the homes, when they include their location of like, oh yeah, I'm here in Houston and John came out to us and it was great. All those little signals that come from the reviews carry an impact. But even more so the details that you include on your own profiles, whether it's your Yelp profile or another, business listing. How do the services and categories of like for specifically Yelp play a role in how that data is shown?
Yeah, so many people don't realize, or there may be a misconception that Yelp is all restaurants, and like nothing could be further from the truth. Restaurants are a great source of traffic for Yelp when you start thinking about it, just based on the frequency that we all, eat per day. You have 3 meals a day, and based on that discovery, great source of traffic. But the majority of Yelp's revenue is actually coming from service-based businesses, many of which that don't have brick and mortar locations. So working with partners like Birdeye, the ability to manage service areas via zip code or radius from that standpoint in order to target specific businesses, I can't think of a more important thing than a trust signal or a reputation for businesses that you may be inviting into your home, whether it's HVAC or a plumber or a locksmith. those are all incredibly important because you're not visiting them, you're inviting them to your home from that standpoint. So you really need to make sure that you're paying attention to reputation and responding to your reviews in that instance. But tremendous amount of brick and mortar businesses, a substantial amount of service-based businesses as well.
Liz is saying, I've been in marketing and real estate for 7 years, and over 70% of my business comes from clients finding me online. Your online presence can convert clients for you if you do it correctly. And that's so true. There's, especially with places that people can't go to visit in person, finding ways to expand your presence. And, I think one of the big things is social and sharing what customer feedback you do have on your website. In my previous webinar, we did a webinar on the state of AI search in 2026. And we really dove into a lot of the different areas of what elements specifically impact your AI search results. And especially with the service-based businesses, we found that there is a lot of traffic that does come from ChatGPT and Perplexity and Gemini, because those types of queries do require a lot of context. And usually it requires almost a conversation with ChatGPT to provide that context, and then you ask the question. Yeah. So I think a lot of people don't quite maybe realize the overall expanse. And I want to share this graphic. Here, let me see if I can pull it up. I want to share this graphic just to kind of speak more to it, of the fact that, especially within Yelp, with the data that you do have on Yelp, if you're a business owner, or if you're a marketing manager and you have 100 or 1,000 locations, that data isn't just there on Yelp. It expands way more, and it allows you to be visible on a lot more different, on a lot of different platforms. Can you kind of speak to this slide and kind of help paint the picture of the ecosystem?
Yeah, no, I think this is a good point. One of the big, I think, misnomers is that people are like, oh, I'm not using Yelp. And what they don't realize is Yelp is actually behind the local discovery of a lot of the products and services that we're all using in our everyday life. We announced last week in our earnings that we just entered into a partnership with OpenAI, where they're going to be actually integrating all of the Yelp location data and reviews into ChatGPT. But we're also behind the location data behind Apple Maps and Siri. So thinking about, I'm a CarPlay user, being able to interact with local businesses via CarPlay, Amazon Alexa and Alexa Plus, Perplexity, Microsoft Bing and Copilot, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo. And then also, if you're driving a Ford, a BMW, Mercedes, Toyota, Audi, Porsche, or a Lincoln, Yelp's actual location data is in the onboard navigation systems for those automobiles, and then also the connected car platforms for Telenav and Garmin. So when you think about the value of our partner community and like Birdeye and the services that you're providing for your clients, the ability through one interface to be able to update the business location information one time, respond to your reviews, or be able to monitor your reviews, and then have that syndicate out is pretty impressive from that standpoint. And part of the reason we've been able to partner with these organizations is the way that we approach reviews from that standpoint. And I think you've got another slide in here that talks about it. Like we do get feedback. People are like, oh, well, people only come to review sites in order to deliver negative feedback. And like nothing could be from the truth. And you'll see here on this slide, more than 76% of the reviews on Yelp are actually greater than 3 stars, and more than half are 5 stars. So when you think about that opportunity, yes, your HVAC system may only break one time, but if you're an active Yelp user and you're finding restaurants and locksmiths, you still have a strong likelihood of leaving a review. And if you are a business owner or a brand manager responsible for responding to those reviews, that's a great way to have that snowball as well. Because what we found is that businesses that actively engage with consumers and respond to the reviews, the likelihood of them seeing, they could see anywhere from a half a star to a full star improvement over time, just by actually delivering empathetic and real responses to the reviews they're getting.
Definitely. I think the way that you respond is a massive, massive impact. But maybe, we got a question earlier from Steve asking how important is keywords and locations in the reviews for proper indexing. And I think, from my conversations with other SEO experts, the keywords that are in the reviews themselves are extremely important. I mean, if you were to just search on Google for best cheeseburger near me, a search result with a, the knowledge panel or the map pack will pop up and it'll actually have a preview of a review that says like best cheeseburgers. Um, but the impact of the response is really interesting because I think it does something on the conversion side. And when people are reading reviews and reading your reviews, I'm the type of person that whenever I'm looking at reviews of a business, I like to filter by negative first just to see, okay, what's the worst experience that I can expect, and go from there and kind of see like, okay, is this an actually a business that I want to work with or go to, or how do they handle it? And the way that a business responds is very important. Can you speak a little bit more to that and the impact of responding?
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. And like going back just a step, it's when you start thinking about the impact of reviews and review response, like as a consumer, if I'm going, yeah, I might not enter into a prompt with ChatGPT with like dentist near me, but a query could look like something like, hey, I need to go to the dentist. I need somebody who's really good with anxious patients. I haven't been in a while and I'm scared to death. Like in those instances, there's probably not a lot of information in a business profile that would actually be able to discern that. But that certainly signals that you could potentially get from reviews and review responses from patients that are talking about like their follow-up or their bedside manner from that standpoint. So that helps transform things that, in the past were potentially, you know, dozens of search results where people were having to discern to being able to actually deliver, the top two or three that actually have that the LLMs have actually identified as sort of meeting that criteria with the review response.
We got a question from Drew. In correlation with that, are our responses as a business important to be GEO specific, or maybe he means geo specific, and have keywords as well?
I think the beautiful thing about LLMs is they're able to pick up all the information and structure it internally from that standpoint. So I don't know that you need to be super detailed as it relates to, want to choose my words. I don't know that you need to actually feel like you need to keyword load your response in order to sort of game the response. I would just say be your authentic self, acknowledge the review with empathy, whether it's good or bad, or gratitude from that standpoint, and trust that it will work with the platforms.
Yeah, I know that with traditional search, the keywords in responses didn't carry an impact. Um, I do know that with the traditional search with reviews, it does. Um, but speaking also to Annette's question of, do you know where the different AI platforms pull info from? And I think that kind of speaks to this whole ecosystem is that they pull from just about everything, whether it's your Google reviews or your Yelp reviews, the reviews you get on your Better Business Bureau, all of these third-party sites and the direct review sites, they all carry an impact. But especially, one of the things that's interesting is with Yelp, to speak to directly is the authority that Yelp reviews do carry. And I think that speaks to the point that the reviews that Yelp receives or hosts are directly from the customer without being requested, or coerced or incentivized. Can you speak to the kind of the reason why these platforms rely on Yelp's customer feedback data from an authenticity and trust standpoint?
Yeah, so at its foundation, Yelp has invested a lot of engineering resources in building our review recommendation engine, and it looks at a lot of signals from that standpoint. And with 500 plus million reviews on the site, we sort of know a lot of trends about both our consumers who are actually using Yelp from that standpoint, and then also the trends on how often somebody might get a review from that standpoint. So like it's easy for the system to identify things like, well, wait a second, I'm like, how did that business get 20 reviews in one day? Like that's not really a sporadic, episodic scenario where people are feeling compelled to leave a review. So when you start looking at things like people's location, the velocity of reviews they're getting, um, it, Yelp spends a lot of time and energy on making sure that we're protecting the consumer experience to make sure that the experience that they're seeing on Yelp is indicative of what they will see, but also protecting business owners as well. It's like we wouldn't want a scenario where one business is going in and negative review bombing a competitor from that standpoint. So there's a lot of time and effort that goes into the recommendation engine and the reviews algorithm to identify, what do we know about this user? Like, is there a level of trust that we know about this user? Are they an active user? How many reviews do they have? How often do they review? You may be in scenarios where you get a review and it's not recommended for a period of time because they may be a new user and we don't know enough about that user in order to recommend that review at that time. But we still recommend you respond to the review. And as Yelp learns more about that user and they start seeing that they're a trustworthy reviewer, reputation and recommended reviews changes all the time. It's very, very active. Not to go too detailed in the way our platforms work, but as Birdeye pulls reviews in for business owners to respond, we encourage that every time a business owner is looking at the reviews that you reach out for the most recent ones, because reviews shift from non-recommended to recommended all the time. And that will change star rating over time as we learn more and more about the consumers that have left the reviews.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and the authenticity and the trust that a lot of these platforms have in the Yelp reviews, it's there. I mean, if you were to go on, I have a couple of screenshots here. If you were to go on Google right now and search for anything like, for these examples, I have best dentist near me, best urgent care near me. As soon as you go past the map pack and a lot of the ads, the first response you'll get is usually a Yelp, the best 10 urgent care, best 10 dentists in Houston. And so that customer feedback data carries a lot of weight with these search engines. And one of the ways that I like to find out where reviews or where recommendations are coming from, especially on ChatGPT, Copilot or Gemini, is, to run a search, put yourself in the shoes of your own customer and run a search for a business that's, of your services. And when it gives you those recommendations, ask it, say, where did you get these recommendations from? What are you basing this on? And what's awesome is that it'll tell you, it'll say, well, I know, Justin, that you don't like to drive, more than 30 minutes, because you've talked about how you hate traffic, or you've talked about, I'm not a vegan, but if it's, if that's the first thing that can come to my mind when I think about this, but, I know you're a vegan, so I recommended these places because I know that they offer great options. And so that nuance, carries. And I think that, especially when it comes to the Yelp ecosystem, that context is provided really well within people's reviews and the data, like the listings data. From a best practices perspective, what are some of the things that you recommend businesses do to kind of put themselves in the best position to succeed?
Yeah, I think at its foundation, make sure your locations are claimed. So you'll see on Yelp, there'll be a blue check mark. It's essentially setting up your Yelp account and gives you the opportunity to take advantage of a lot of the free tools that exist in order to manage your page. Having your page claimed is a great opportunity because it sort of signifies that the lights are on and that consumers tend to interact with businesses that are claimed slightly more than unclaimed businesses. And then, like when you're working with a partner like Birdeye, it's really important to make sure your profile is robust, that you're adding photo content, you've added, about the business content, specialties, all of that information that you believe is important to convey to a consumer from that standpoint to set yourself apart not only from other businesses, but to sort of leverage the ability to visually merchandise yourself, not just on Yelp, but then also the other partners that are actually leveraging that data in order to inform their own platforms. And then finally, uh, watch your reviews. Take the reviews as feedback. Um, what I would say is sometimes it can be tough. It might be honest feedback, but take it for what it's worth as it relates to feedback. Um, we see higher levels of consumer engagement with a lot of our advertisers with 4-star rated businesses. And, I think, when we were prepping for this, our hypothesis is that it's because, human nature is like nobody's perfect. And like a slightly lower rated business is probably more believable from that standpoint. And it's funny, you had mentioned earlier your sort of human nature and sort of looking at the 1-star rated businesses first. I do that as well. But even if I see a business that's gotten a couple negative reviews, when I actually see how the business owner or the person that responded to that review, I'm often interacting with businesses that still had some negative reviews from that standpoint, largely seeing the business owner or the review responder as a marketing opportunity. It's like, hey, what went wrong? How did you take the feedback, and how are you informing that on a go forward basis from that standpoint?
Yeah. It's one of the things that I think about a lot is the way that a business responds, especially if it's quick, if they respond quickly, and then if they actually seem to be paying attention and care. Um, and when you're doing this at scale between across 50, 100, 1,000 locations, 500 locations, responding quickly and with authenticity is really difficult unless you have it spread across every single location manager. Then you're putting the trust across 500 location managers, and that's a difficult thing to do from a corporate perspective of like, okay, if somebody leaves a negative review, do I trust 500 people to respond the way we need them to from our brand? And that's something that I think Birdeye does a really great job with, especially when it comes to making it easy to understand those responses, or I'm sorry, to understand the sentiment of those reviews and the overall trends of like, okay, this location, we're seeing a slight dip in the sentiment, and we notice that these are the themes. But in this location, it's actually going up, and we're seeing this is why. And then being able to drill down to the actual review and respond to them from one place makes it a lot easier. So let's take a look at some of these questions. I think we've got a couple here.
Yeah, one I do want to address because I think it's important for everyone to realize there is no advertising on Yelp does not impact one way or the other from information syndicating out. There's no advantage to or not from that standpoint. The information is going live. It's relevancy that's driving it. The only thing that advertising will do on Yelp is affect the search engine results page because we have sponsored search results at the top of the page from that standpoint, and then the organic search results after. So I did want to make sure that we covered that.
Yeah, that was the one I was looking for. So as it relates to, I'm trying to figure out which way I want to take this, because we do have a few more minutes, but I want to make sure that we're covering the key areas. And so one of the things I'm curious about too is you mentioned earlier photos. How important are they? And just maybe I want to talk more about just the profile in general and the key elements that are important. So like if you're a business right now and, at this point, I think it's pretty clear that given the reach of the Yelp ecosystem in terms of its third party, in the perspective, the fact that you can't really ignore it. It's something that you have to take on. It's something that you need to, because it is what's being pulled by these AI platforms. So given that fact, what from a actual like profile perspective is important? And you spoke to it a little bit, but I'm curious more so the specific, what kind of photos work well? Is it of the business? Is it of the people? Is there, a certain number of photos that you notice that may succeed more? and then categories and services, and how do those play a role in like the actual data that you fill out on the profile? How does that take effect?
Yeah, so for our advertisers, photos are really important because what makes Yelp different from other platforms is there is no concept of ad creation on Yelp from that standpoint, because Yelp itself, our machine learning will actually take review snippets as well as photos from the profile, auto create ads, and it will auto optimize over time. So it's always good. More is better from that standpoint. Um, you can add them as a business owner, or brands can add them through platforms like Birdeye. Um, Yelp also supports user generated content too. So, if somebody, I'm a big Instagram user. Like, I'm all about the food photos from that standpoint. It's not unusual for us to see a lot of food photos, menu item photos from that standpoint. But I would say pretend that you are visually merchandising your business and add the content that you feel is meaningful in order to convey your business in the way that you want to convey your business to your prospective customers.
Yeah. Liz commented, I did wish there was a way to integrate Google reviews, but I know there are marketing companies that steal and add fake reviews on Google. So I see why not to integrate. And I think that speaks exactly to the philosophy of Yelp of why you guys don't request reviews, is because you want that authenticity. Really, it's, you don't want to make it easy to game the system, because then that makes it inauthentic. And so I think that kind of speaks directly to the philosophy of what you guys do and why these platforms trust your customer feedback data. Levi is asking, is there a standard recommendation for this situation? In multifamily property management, this is an issue I see. How can individual communities maintain a consistent form of authenticity and an ability to take feedback among a portfolio of hundreds of communities? From a corporate standpoint, it's difficult to maintain consistency. And that is a challenging scenario, because it's not like you just have one brand. You essentially have hundreds of brands for all these different communities that, especially from a local perspective, the way that you interact or your style or your brand voice may be completely different in Texas versus New York or New Jersey or Florida or California. And so having all those different brands under your umbrella and being able to manage that stuff consistently is a challenge. And that's something that Birdeye does really well, is we allow you to not just have, or to manage these locations from a full place or just from one brand, but you can actually manage each individual brand from Birdeye. And with our AI capabilities, you can actually have each of those brands have their own voice in the way that in the way that you respond to reviews, the way that you post on social. It's really pretty remarkable, honestly. That's kind of almost exactly what we're designed for.
A marketer could do it on their own. Like, my first recommendation would be is find an excellent partner who does it well. Because the other thing is, we see on the Yelp side is ownership changes often as well. Like, one management company will pick up. You see it in assisted living as well from that standpoint. I think your feedback is dead on. It's like, work with a strong partner, maintain that brand voice, because you're going to want that consistent experience being delivered to consumers.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those things, man, I can't even imagine, like, with Levi's challenge is like, how do I deal with this flood of, the flood of different brands and the voices, and then the reviews that come into all of those, and then trying to keep track of everything coherently is a massive challenge, especially if you don't have any system at all. I mean, think about the amount of Google business profiles, the amount of Yelp profiles, the amount of Facebook pages that you have up, and all those different places. It's just crazy to me. And so I don't know how you can't, like you said, you have to have some sort of platform. And what's really incredible about where we are today is that we do have AI, and it's basically built for this sort of automation to be able to take a lot of this work away. Because even if you were to have one system that you can manage everything from, being able to consolidate all those reviews and understand, what is the sentiment of these different places down to the local level, is really difficult. And so with a lot of the platform, a lot of the tools that we have on our platform, it's specifically designed for that. If you're part of a marketing agency, so the thing that Levi's comment reminded me of is when you have a lot of different brands, marketing agencies, they usually don't just have one brand that they have as a customer or a client. Most of the time, they're managing hundreds of brands that all have hundreds of locations. And so, from an agency standpoint, Birdeye has kind of an agency platform that's specifically designed for people who have 100 different brands. And so, Levi, I would just recommend you check us out. You can click the schedule a call button, or just let us know, and I can put you in touch with somebody. But it sounds like your exact situation is what we're built for. So what I wanted to do now, we got about 15 minutes, I did want to take a look at this slide here and just kind of reiterate and go through some of these best practices for the people who are maybe late to joining, or wanting to make sure, I want to make sure that when we walk away from this webinar, there are a few key takeaways and best practices that people can take with them in terms of how do you put yourself in the best position to succeed. And I think these best practices, I think these work really, Jim, as you can speak to some of them, I think they're really, tuned for Yelp, but I think these work for any platform, whether it's Google or Bing or, the Better Business Bureau or whatever it is. When it comes to managing your online reputation, these are some best practices that carry weight in any, channel.
Yeah, at the highest level though too is that whether you're a multi-loc brand or an SMB owner with one location, you have a lot to do. I had an opportunity during my time in payments to visit a lot of businesses, and you sort of had the experience of seeing the front of the house, and then they would take you behind the scenes, and they were doing payroll, they were paying taxes, inventory, they were doing the scheduling, like responding to reviews and managing their web presence on the multitude of sites that are out there. Trying to do that on your own when you're running your business would be near impossible. So like outside of all the best practices, my first recommendation is find yourself a good partner like Birdeye who can help you do this at scale, and then follow these best practices, because you're not just doing this on Yelp, you're doing this on Yelp and then all of the downstream syndication partners where that information is flowing to. So when you think about the ability to fingers to keys, enter that information one time, and then have that syndicate out to other platforms where hundreds of millions of consumers are interacting with that data, you're going to increase your likelihood of actually getting discovered by those consumers. Mm-hmm. On the review side, just offer a consistent user experience to the consumers who are interacting with your business. It's inevitable. Somebody's going to have a bad day. You may end up getting a bad review. Take it as feedback, respond with empathy, and move on. It's not going to be the end of the world. And you will see that even a negative review with an empathetic response from the brand representative at a multi-location company or an SMB, it's not going to cost you business. We talked about it earlier. Definitely make sure you claim your page, and you could do that at business.yelp.com. Multi-location companies, I definitely recommend that you work with Birdeye in order to do that on your behalf, just given that you're dealing with dozens up to hundreds and thousands of locations. That's why they exist. And then when we start thinking about other things like keeping your profile up to date, the categories, the website hours, Justin, I recognize I didn't answer your question about categories. You don't have to worry about keywords on Yelp, because most of our search is category based. So it's not like you're going to be looking for a Toto toilet replacement. You're going to be looking for a plumber, and all the downstream keywords that fall under that umbrella are going to impact the search results from that standpoint. So discovery on Yelp ends up being a lot simpler than it is on a lot of other platforms. Website and hours are really important. Making sure that if somebody finds your page and they want more information, the link to your website, where you probably invested a lot more time and energy in building out robust data, is really important. So making sure your website is accurate there. And hours are really incredibly important too. The last thing you want to do is was less of an issue when I lived in Manhattan and I walked, to different places, but you don't want someone to drive to your business and arrive after closing. It's not going to be a great consumer experience. So taking the time and energy to make sure the hours of operation are correct. The good news is you update them once through Birdeye, and then that syndicates out to all of the platforms. Talked about the photos. Take the time and energy, take a few good shots that you feel like represent you well, and get those loaded. Knowing that people shop with their eyes in some instances, so having the ability to not only have the robust profile content, but visually, telling the stories through beautiful photography. And I'm not saying you need to go out and hire a photographer. Android and iPhone make amazing cameras in their phones. You could definitely do worse, but I would definitely make sure that you get those uploaded again, so they syndicate out. And then we talked about responding to reviews with empathy and sort of acknowledging the feedback that you're getting. I think also having it not be cookie cutter. Like, the last thing you want to do is be portraying to consumers who are looking at your reputation is, thanks so much for the review. Thanks so much for the review.
Yeah.
Taking a few minutes to actually acknowledge the appreciation for the feedback that they're providing, and or if something didn't go right, perhaps inviting them back or acknowledging the feedback and letting them know that you appreciate it. The time matters though too. So when you start thinking about it, you really want to make sure that, like particularly with Birdeye, the ability to get notified when you have a review, so you can respond in close proximity to getting it, because the closer in proximity that you respond, again, it's another signal that business owner or the person managing the reviews is on top of it, and they care about the feedback from that standpoint. And if it was a negative experience and you respond quickly, it's not unusual for the reviewer to go in and edit and update their review. So you also have an opportunity to get a second opportunity to make things right in the event that there wasn't a fantastic experience.
Yeah. This is great. There's a couple of pieces I want to touch on here, especially I saw the comment from Liz saying, you do need a human managing your online presence, and that is 100% true. You can scale a lot of this with AI, and with Birdeye, even with the responses, I think you touched on it, Jim, is those bot responses of like, thank you, we really appreciate it. If you have more feedback, please contact us at blah, blah, blah. And if they do that for every single response, for me as a viewer, that just runs dry, and I tune it out immediately. But I do think that, especially with Birdeye, we do use AI to provide more human-like, nuanced responses. But like Liz said, you still need to have a human in the loop. You can't just let it go rogue and respond in any way you want. But what does make it really helpful is you can at least get those responses drafted in that human-like way and make a couple of tweaks, versus having to spend the amount of time to write every single review response from scratch immediately, or from one at a time. It really does still accelerate the amount of time that you save, but I would definitely recommend reviewing and approving before you instead of just blindly sending an LLM out to just respond to everything, because it's not perfect.
Yeah,
but it does help you save a lot of time.
I'm sorry. There's a tremendous value in editing as opposed to create from scratch. So I think the ability to actually leverage technology in order to give you a jump start, and then editing it so it's more bespoke to the feedback that you got is a winning formula from my point of view.
Definitely. And then one of the best practices, the second one down, is claim and manage your free business page at Yelp. And I think that's kind of an underrated tip that people may not realize. Is, I said this before, but when the search engines are making a recommendation, they want to confirm that you are who you say you are, you do what you say you do, and you're located where you say you're located. And part of that confirmation, as we know now that the data from Yelp is extremely trusted by all of these LLMs and these platforms, it's going to ask Yelp, like, hey, is this business who they say they are? And they're going to check the Yelp platform to see if they're an official business under that account. And so when you claim that page, even right there is a huge signal to say, like, okay, I can confirm that this business is who they say they are because, I've checked their Google business profile and I confirmed it on their Yelp profile or vice versa. And that adds so much more trust in their recommendation. So just simply claiming your profile and filling it out can carry a very large impact on, will you or will you not be recommended? Because if you think about it, between two businesses, like one person, one business is not claimed and the other one is claimed, and they're trying to consolidate, like, okay, here's everything I know about this business. And, I see that they've got these types of reviews and their website says this, but I can't find them on Yelp, or maybe their Yelp information isn't right. So I can't really confirm because that name isn't correct, or the address is different, or, whatever it may be. Those signals carry weight. And so having the consistency of that data from location to location and from platform to platform are important. And so I think just the simple fact of just claiming your page on Yelp and making sure that you have that presence established is a huge, benefit. And then, one of the things that I've always, talked about with our webinars, and, whether it's Google reviews or Yelp reviews, is we speak to it from a perspective of like, we are assuming that you do provide a great service for your customers. If you don't do that, that would be the first thing I would recommend, is focus on those in-person experiences to give people a reason to leave you a positive review or a 5-star, experience. Whether it's, going the extra mile to take extra care in the review response online, or in the actual transaction, whether you're, the manager of a restaurant or the doctor at a healthcare practice, taking the extra time to give people an excellent experience can go a long way. Even in the non-digital world of just the word of mouth element and getting those types of recommendations, that's also a huge impact as well. So that's something that I realized we didn't really talk too much about. Just the simple fact of claiming your profile is such an important thing. Michael even says, like, if I don't see a negative review, usually that is a red flag to me, and that is true. Like, if you see just a perfect rating of 5-star reviews, it is a little bit of a red flag of like, okay, how much can I actually trust this? Are you saying that out of all the customers they've had, nobody has ever had a bad experience? I think having, and maybe, maybe you could speak to that a little bit, Jim, about how the difference between a perfect 5-star and maybe like a 4.5 or 6 or 8 can carry, a different impact, at least in the minds of the people reading the reviews.
Yeah. I think one of the interesting things is, and I'm probably going to butcher the gentleman's name, but there was an FTC economist, I think it's Devash Ravali, did a study, and I think the study was called "Do Bad Businesses Get Good Reviews?" or something to that effect. Anybody who reaches out to me afterwards, I'm happy to point you to the study. But they looked at Yelp, the Better Business Bureau, and a number of other similar platforms. And what the study had suggested was that a lot of the other platforms that permitted solicitation or permitted a rating without pros or a review text from that standpoint, they tended to skew higher towards 4 and 5 stars, like most of their reviews from that standpoint. When he looked at the Better Business Bureau and Yelp, it was a much more even bell curve distribution from that standpoint. So when you start thinking about the trustworthiness and the accuracy of the data and the partnerships we have, I do think that's one of the telling signs from that standpoint. And going back to attendee Michael's comment from that standpoint, like, if everything is 4 and 5 stars, is there really any differentiation between a business? And how do you, as a consumer, how would you decide? So I think the ability to go in and, like, to your point, respond to every review, good or bad, does actually drive not only engagement, but also can convert people who are shopping your business and considering you as a potential business that they want to transact with.
Yeah. So I think we're running right towards the end of our time here. But I wanted to first say thank you so much, Jim, for coming on. And I know we weren't able to get to all of the questions, but if there is a place for them to go, Jim, to ask questions, or if they want to get in contact with you, is that something that we can give people? And if
Absolutely.
they have anything.
Go crazy. I'm Jim C, the letter C at yelp.com. Anybody has specific questions, feel free to reach out to me. Give me the grace. If there's a lot coming through, I promise I will get back to everyone. And then I would also recommend, if you're a Birdeye customer and you have questions for them about Yelp, go to your Birdeye rep as well. But if there's specific Yelp questions or you have questions about Yelp advertising, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I love connecting with brands and business owners, and I'm happy to spend the time in getting you the answers you need.
Awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope we were able to provide some value and some insight into not only just Yelp, but also just how the AI search ecosystem is currently evolving, and what you can do to help put yourself in the best position for success. I think it's kind of a crazy time for marketers everywhere trying to navigate this. It's definitely new territory. And so it's kind of a group effort in understanding, what can we do to help put our brand in the best place. But yeah, and Jim said it perfectly. If you have any other questions, you can, I'll put it here in the chat as well. hello@birdeye.com. So this is our team account. I actually manage this email account specifically. So if you do have questions, I'll get it and I can help answer any questions you may have and put you in contact with somebody. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it and have a great rest of your day. And we'll see you in the next installment of the AI Success Series. Thank you guys.
Thank you.